Hello everyone. This tutorial covers strategies for departure management in the Tracon 2012 simulation using the Los Angeles Tracon as our example area with the runways configured for normal operations, which just means that the airplanes are landing and departing to the west. Generally speaking, I think departures are easier to manage than arrivals for a couple of reasons. First, the very nature of departures is that they're leaving the area of the airport, and as time progresses, the airplanes get further away from the airport and further away from each other. And they're climbing up to a variety of different altitudes, which helps separation even more. This is exactly the opposite of arrivals, where planes are converging on the airport as time goes by and must ultimately end up at exactly the same altitudes for final approach and landing. Departures within Tracon 2012 have another useful property. All of the airplanes are flying a departure procedure when they leave the airport. A departure procedure, which is sometimes called a SID, and that stands for a Standard Instrument Departure, is a prescribed path that allows the flight to leave the immediate area of the airport and connect to the en route structure. Note that a STAR, a Standard Terminal Arrival Route, performs exactly the same task at the other end of the trip. A STAR connects the en route structure to the vicinity of the airport and drops the planes off at a point from which they can fly an instrument approach. In real life, many SIDs require a radar vector shortly after the departure to get the aircraft onto the main path of the departure procedure. But all of the SIDs I've seen so far in Tracon 2012 for LAX do not require a radar vector after departure. The airplanes will directly fly themselves around on the SID. And from a strategic perspective, that is massively important. So let me say that again. Even at maximum departure density during LAX's busiest times, I've handled over 100 consecutive departures without ever once giving a plane a radar vector. And what I mean by a radar vector here is a command like United 123 fly heading XXX. In general, you cannot manage arrivals without radar vectors, but you can and probably should manage your departures without using them. So how's this possible? Well, this is where the SIDs help us out enormously. Once an aircraft is established on a departure procedure, it will fly a fixed path over a set of waypoints, intersections, or navigational aids, or some combination of those, which will get the airplane away from the airport. All you have to worry about is the airplane's altitude. And for the LA Tracon, even that doesn't take very much management, as we'll see in just a couple minutes. So our objectives then are really pretty simple for departures, at least in the LAX Tracon. First, we have to acknowledge radar contact with the airplane when they call us shortly after they take off. Saying radar contact is a mandatory radio call in real life and in the Tracon simulation as well. Second, we have to get the airplane climbing up as high as we're allowed to by the rules of our airspace. In all cases, that's either going to be 6,000 feet for traffic headed to the north or 13,000 feet for traffic headed everywhere else. We'll cover that more in a bit. Third, we need to hand the flight off to the appropriate Air Route Traffic Control Center sector, which usually is just called center, and tell the pilot to switch frequencies. So to hand an airplane to center, the airplane has to be within 5 miles of a sector boundary or within 3,000 feet of the top of the airspace that we're controlling. Now this is slightly different from what it says in the manual. The manual says you have to be within 5 miles and within 3,000 feet, but that's not the case. And that wouldn't make any sense for the LAX Tracon anyway, as you'll see shortly. So that's it really. And if it sounds simple, well that's because it really is pretty simple if you stick to the basic principles that we're going to demonstrate here in a bit. So let's start by looking at a few of the departure procedures from LAX. We're certainly not going to review all of them because there's simply no need to do that. But once you understand the idea behind the 4 procedures we are going to look at, you'll be able to handle any of the departure procedures out of LAX. So let's start by looking at the most common departure procedures that will come up, which is called the Holtz 9 departure. And that looks like this. Departure procedures, by the way, are generally named after the last waypoint or intersection or whatever that makes up the SID itself. The departure procedure doesn't stop. It isn't like the airplane has to stop at that particular point. It's just that once they reach the final waypoint of the departure procedure, then they're either already on their filed route of flight to their destination, or they're flying a kind of an intermediate thing called a transition, which takes them directly onto their route. In this particular case, for the Holtz 9, after they depart out of LAX and reach the Holtz intersection, or waypoint, actually it's a GPS waypoint, then they continue out to the east heading towards a thermal VOR, and this section from Holtz out to thermal is called the thermal transition. From thermal, then, they would actually be on whatever their en route filed flight plan would be. And thermal VOR is actually like 100 miles to the east of the Holtz intersection, so you will never see the planes at that distance. Maybe a better way to say that is that we will have handed them off to the center long before they get to thermal VOR. Indeed, we're going to see that we hand them off before they even reach Holtz intersection, Holtz waypoint in most cases. So the Holtz 9 departure has two slightly different starting paths depending upon which which runway we're coming out of the Los Angeles airport. And so as a short aside and reminder here, when Los Angeles airport has 4 runways. It has a pair of runways that are numbered runway 24 left and right, and a pair of runways numbered 25 left and right. For departure purposes, only the 2 innermost runways are used in real life at LAX, runway 24 left and 25 right. And the 2 outermost runways are used for arrivals. That way you can have simultaneous arrivals and departures going on. For Holtz 9 departures, the airplanes that are coming off of the 24 left runway head straight out to Nance intersection, come down here to Dokag intersection, and then come down here to Pevy. And the names are covered up slightly by the routes now, but you'll see as you play it that those are the names of the intersections. Then out to Holtz, and then they fly the thermal transition out to the east. Airplanes coming off of runway 25 right take a slightly more direct course. They fly out here to Schaeff waypoint and then directly down to Pevy, and then it's a common departure once both of them reach Pevy. The reason that they do this is pretty simple. It's to allow 2 successive departures, one off of each runway, to fly the same departure procedure without any concerns about lateral separation. Remember that at within 40 miles of the airport, the separation criteria is 3 miles and 1,000 feet of vertical separation. And as long as we are departing the airplanes a reasonable distance apart, we generally will have vertical separation without a problem, because the plane that departs first is going to be higher than the planes that depart second. But that is not as dependable as you'd like it to be, because planes climb at very different rates. And so if the first plane that came off there was a small turboprop that had a climb rate of 2,000 feet per minute, and the next plane that came off of there was a Boeing 737, for example, one of the new Dash 800s, that climbs much closer to 3,000 feet per minute, and it would quickly eat up all of that vertical separation that was achieved by the fact that the first plane took off much sooner. So to make it easy for all parties, the departures off of the left runways, or the 25 complex, come down this route, and the departures off the right complex, off the 24 complex, come out to Nance and then come around the other way. You can give all the planes on a Holtz 9 departure a climb to 13,000 feet immediately after you acknowledge radar contact with them. In real life, this is done in a single radio exchange, something like the airplane would say, SoCal departure, United 123, 800, climbing 5,000. And then ATC would say, United 123, SoCal departure, radar contact, climb and maintain 13,000. And then the pilot would acknowledge that with something like up to 13,000, United 123. The dialogue in the game is a little different than that. First of all, because during the initial contact, you'll hear the pilot also tell us not only their altitude and what they're climbing to, but that they have information Foxtrot or some other name for an information. That's a it's very strange they do that because it's utterly meaningless to departure control, and you would never hear that in real life as an airplane comes off of a runway. It was important for them, for the tower to know that they had the current information in terms of wind direction and strength and altimeter settings and things like that, but the departure control doesn't need to know that. But the game says it, so that's just what we've got. The other thing that we can't do in the game is we can't combine our radar acknowledgement and our climb instruction into a single command. Now, with many of the commands in the game, you can combine things together, but not on that initial radar contact acknowledgement. I'm not quite sure why they did it that way, because in real life that's the most common thing in the world, but that's not what happens in the game, and it's not really that big of a deal. It just wastes a little additional time. What you're going to find is that almost all the airplanes will easily climb to 10,000 feet, which is the minimum altitude that we can hand off to center, well before they reach the Holtz intersection. In fact, in most cases, they're going to reach that altitude before they even get to Pevy intersection. So in this little corridor here between Pevy and Holtz is where you're going to find you're handing a lot of traffic off to center way before it gets out to Holtz or anything further to the east. And certainly way, way before the sector lateral boundary here that's indicated by the dashed line. Okay, so now let's take a look at another very commonly seen departure procedure, which is the Ocean 4 departure. And I've got dashed lines on this one for a particular reason that we're going to see in just a second. As you look at this departure, it should look awfully familiar. It looks pretty much like the Holtz 9 that we just looked at, and in fact if we overlay Holtz 9 you will see that they are exactly the same all the way through and even a little bit beyond the Holtz waypoint. All Ocean 4 does is at Ocean waypoint the flights turn back to the north, head up to Seal Beach VOR, and then proceed on their way out to Daggett VOR, generally on their way to Las Vegas or any points further to the northwest than Las Vegas. So these can be treated exactly the same way when you see these either a Holtz 9 or an Ocean 4 departure. You will be using exactly the same strategies to get those airplanes out, which is let them fly the procedures, climb them to 13,000 feet, and then be prepared to hand them off to center somewhere between Pevy and Holtz intersections. And this little leg here that you will see that the route they fly once center takes them over is up to the north. It just doesn't factor into any considerations for us. They will be well above our airspace at that point. Okay, the next procedure we're going to look at is called the Sebb 7, and this one also comes up quite frequently. The route that is shown here is not exactly the route that you're going to see in the game. It kind of heads a little bit further out to the west here and then kind of makes a couple of dodges and then finally comes back along this route. In practice within the game, you will never let the plane fly the route that is actually depicted as part of the SID. And there's actually a couple of reasons for that, but the simplest one being is that you want to keep this one well away from the Holtz 9 and the Ocean 4 departures that are flying out here as well. So our strategy on this particular departure will be to let the plane continue straight ahead till it reaches the 5-mile DME, or about 5 miles from the airport. DME stands for distance measuring equipment. It's the way that distances from navigational aids that provide distance measurement is discussed in aviation terms. And so you will very commonly hear a pilot or an air traffic controller say to do something at some distance DME, and that means using the distance measuring equipment in the aircraft. That's the distance they want things to happen. So at roughly the 5-mile circle here, once they've crossed it, we will give them a turn and let them proceed direct to the Seal Beach VOR, and they will then climb, and we have also cleared them to climb to 13,000 as with all the flights that come to the south, and they will reach that 13,000 or 10,000 foot minimum handoff altitude way, way, way before Seal Beach VOR. In fact, what we'll see in practice is that they reach it even before we cross the sector boundary here, somewhere in the 10-mile distance from LAX here. We'll be handing the airplane off to center. So that's the Sebb E7. An interesting tidbit from real life is that this departure from LAX is almost never used in real life. In fact, there's specific instructions on the Sebb E7 departure that it should not be used as long as another particular departure is available, one called the Loop 6. And the Loop 6 departure, which is probably the most commonly used departure out of LAX, is actually not even in the simulation. So that's, which is kind of interesting and amusing. What the Loop 6 does is it sort of looks like the Sebb E7. They send them out directly offshore far enough that they can make a turn, and then they climb right back over the LAX airport at 10,000 feet or higher, and then they make their way to wherever they're going, either to the east or to the northeast. So Loop 6 is not simulated. Sebb E7 is only supposed to be used when the loop is unavailable for some reason, but the loop isn't in the game, and the Sebb E7 is used very commonly, so we'll just have to get used to that. If you remember earlier, I also said that the departures are named after the intersection that they finish up on, and there is no Sebb intersection visible here. Sebb intersection is actually there. If you were to look at a area chart, you would see that it's up here just a little bit northeast of the Pomona VOR. And I'm not showing it on my radar chart. I did not edit the sector to add that because it's just not relevant to this particular departure. We will be handing the airplanes off so far before that it isn't useful or relevant, particularly to the traffic that we'll be handling. But I just do want you to know that in fact there is a Sebb intersection, and that's what the departure is named after. Okay, so finally now let's take a look at one last departure procedure, which is for traffic headed to the north. And that's called this is called the Gorman 4. You will see an awful lot of airplanes departures flying the Gorman 4 departure. This is for planes going up the coast to San Francisco or Oakland or any of the cities in Northern California, and even for flights going up to Oregon or Washington or Alaska. They all start off with this departure, or with a very similar one called the Ventura departure, which kind of heads out this way a little bit more, but Gorman 4s are extremely common. You'll have to handle them a lot. Now this one has to be handled differently than all of the ones which depart to the south. This one makes an immediate right turn, or almost an immediate right turn, as it comes off of the runway complex, either the 2-4 left or 2-5 right, and then heads directly up to the Gorman VOR, which is, if you scroll your map above what we can see here, you will see it. It's kind of on the top left corner of the map. This one is particularly different because unlike the south departure procedures where we were climbing the airplane to 13,000 feet and then handing them off at 10,000 or thereafter to the sector controller, the center sector controller above us, in this particular case, we're going to restrict the planes to only climb to 6,000 feet, and we will be handing them off at the lateral boundary of our sector here, which is indicated by this dashed line, to the sector controller to the north here. So a good question, and an immediate question that should arise in your mind is, why is this different? Why are we climbing everything that goes to the south to 13,000 feet immediately, but we're restricting aircraft which could climb by the time they reach here much higher than 6,000 feet? Why are we restricting them to 6,000? So I'll actually give you a moment to just ponder that before I answer the question for you. What could be the reason why we have to restrict airplanes to only climb to 6,000 feet as they head to the north here? Well, if you think back to our arrival tutorials and to managing arrivals into the LA area, if you recall, there is a arrival called the Sadie 6, which comes in from the north, from the northwest and from the north, hits Sadie intersection and makes a turn and heads over Santa Monica Airport, and then we vector them around and onto the runway 24 right ILS approach. So notice that the traffic coming from Sadie is at 7,000 feet as it makes its way from Sadie and based and to the Santa Monica Airport. And then we descend them to 5,000 feet and then turn them to 4,000 as they kind of make the U-turn here to fly the ILS arrival. That should sound pretty familiar if you have played the game recently and done LAX arrivals. So that's the reason why we have to restrict traffic to only 6,000 feet. It is directly crossing the arrival stream coming on this 86. And in fact, any arrivals that are coming in and then doing this sort of a downwind and turn to final arrival pattern into the airport. So because we have to maintain 3 miles of lateral separation or 1,000 feet of vertical separation, now you, I think, can see exactly the reason why this restriction exists. The departing traffic is restricted to 6,000 feet. Arriving traffic is restricted to no lower than 7,000 feet. So even if the timing works out that we have planes directly on top of each other as they cross here, we still will have legal separation vertically between the aircraft. In principle, we could start to climb them higher to than 6,000 feet once they have gotten north of the Santa Monica, this line from Sadie based in Santa Monica Airport. But just for safety purposes, because remember, we're looking at 5-mile range rings here, so this is really only about 10 miles. And to give ourselves a little bit of buffer for airplanes that are flying perhaps a little north of this line, then we just keep them at 6,000 feet, hand them over to SoCal departure at the boundary here, and then the next sector lets them climb to their necessary altitude. So this particular departure, again, even though it's a little different, is still very simple. They will turn on their own, but to be safe, if you want to, you can give them a proceed direct Gorman, climb and maintain 6,000 instruction. The combined instruction works just fine after radar contact here. And then once they're within 3 miles of the, 5 miles of the lateral boundary here, we hand them over to center on the 134.2 frequency. Now, in real life, this is not center we're handing them to. It's another SoCal departure sector, but the game doesn't make that small distinction between handing them off to sectors and handing them off to centers, so we will say center, even though it's really not a center. So while there's many other departures besides the 4 we've covered, in all cases, the strategy is pretty much the same. We let the plane fly the published departure procedure as depicted. We climb the plane to 13,000 feet right away for almost all the departures, or really I think all the departures that are initially headed south of the airport, and then hand them off to center once they're at or above 10,000 feet. We climb planes to 6,000 feet if they're going to cross the arrival stream from Sadie, and then hand them off to the center controller at the northern lateral boundary of our sector. And that's the basic strategy for all the departures management in the game. As I said, it is much simpler than doing arrival management, at least for the LAX Tracon. So one thing to remember is that when you're in the simulation, you can look at the path the plane is going to fly by holding down the control key and left clicking. That will show the route of flight, and it will stay displayed until you control left click it again. And you should get in the habit of doing that as soon as a new departure appears on your scope, so you can maintain situational awareness of where that airplane is going to go and know right away what your initial commands that you're going to give it once it makes contact with you. So now a couple of final tidbits before we actually go take a shift and do a tutorial of actually flying or of working the sector. First, although the planes will fly the SIDS exactly as shown when you do the control left click to show the route, it's perfectly okay to give them a shortcut if you have time and if the traffic situation permits. And you'll see me do this quite often during part 2 of the tutorial where we get to the actual gameplay. Finally, an interesting little fact is that if we turn on all of the departures that we've just talked about to the south here, there's a purpose that all of these things are accomplishing, which is, and it's kind of a funny purpose. The traffic is being routed around this area right here, the Palos Verdes Peninsula. And it isn't just these procedures. All the departure procedures that you're going to see, Imperial 1, all of the procedures which head out either to the east or to the south will go offshore and will deliberately get routed around this particular chunk of land. And in real life, there is a constraint. The controllers cannot take traffic over the Palos Verdes Peninsula below 10,000 feet. So fair question is why? And the answer is there's a lot of money in homes centered on the Palos Verdes Peninsula. A lot of very wealthy people live there, and they're all wealthy enough in aggregate that the FAA elected, rather than getting complaints from them all the time, to simply route all of the traffic departing out of LAX around the peninsula, or if they do go over it, they're very high enough not to cause any noise. So if you want to keep your job as a virtual controller in the LAX Tracon, keep this restriction in mind and don't route traffic over the Palos Verdes Peninsula. Okay, so that's enough talking about stuff. I think we have the basic strategy now, so let's go fly some departures. And one of the things I'm going to do here as we start is I'm not, like we did in the arrivals, start with a very low traffic pattern. We're just going to dive right into a pretty dense a period of departures out of LAX and apply the strategies we've discussed. And you'll see right away that this really is a much easier task than controlling arrivals. Okay, so here we are at our main game screen. I will simply point out the time. Here we're starting at 1400. In fact, we'll go ahead and shift this to 1600. That's a little bit denser. We're going to control the departure position, no weather, and we have runway 24 left and runway 25 right selected as our departure runways. We've got traffic set at maximum departure density. And let's go ahead and get started. Because the density will be fairly high, there may be some periods during the demo, I can assure you there will be, where I will be too busy to make commentary, to do much commentary. But observe that I'm following exactly the plan of letting the planes fly the departures as depicted, getting them up to altitude, and then handing them off. And there will be opportunities for some commentary, so it won't be all just listening to me give commands. So here we go.
Departure, Continental 294 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s.
Continental 294, radar contact. Continental 294, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000s, Continental 294.
So while we have a moment, since there aren't a lot of departures on the screen right now, let's take a look again at the route. This one came off of the runway 25 complex, so it's going to take the shorter version of the Holtz 9 going to Schaeff, Pevy, and then Holtz intersection. Now, since we have no other planes that we have to worry about from a traffic perspective, we can go ahead and give this guy a shortcut and let him go directly to Pevy intersection. Continental 294, proceed direct Pevy, resume the departure.
Proceed direct Pevy, resume the departure, Continental 294.
Our new departure is flying exactly the same.
Departure, Delta 2662 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s.
Delta 2662, radar contact. Now, it's a good idea to take a look when airplanes are flying the same departure to look at the type of aircraft to find out if we're going to have any problems with climb rates being markedly different. Delta 2662 is a 757-200, and Continental 294 is a 757-300. So these are basically the same aircraft, should have the same climb rates. Delta 2662, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000, Delta 2662.
And there's our first Gorman 4 departure. Delta 2662, proceed direct PEVI, resume the departure.
Proceed direct PEVI, resume the departure. Delta 2662, departure, Southwest 6873 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s.
Southwest 6873, radar contact. Southwest 6873, climb and maintain 6000.
Climb and maintain 6000, Southwest 6873.
A little gameplay note here is that sometimes airplanes on the Gorman 4 departure do not make the right turn directly to the Gorman VOR as they come off. So it's a very good idea to watch and make sure you see the little history trail indicate that they're starting a turn. And if you don't see that almost immediately as they come off of the runways, then give them the command to proceed direct Gorman, climb and maintain 6000 rather than just to climb to 6000. I don't know why that happens. I don't know if it's a glitch in the game or something deliberately they've done, but watch for it for the Gorman 4 departures. So Continental 294, as you can see, is now making their left turn to head out to Holtz intersection. They are already well above the 10,000 foot handoff, so let's go ahead and hand them to center. And we have another departure coming, so we'll do this quickly. We click on them to initiate the handoff and wait for it to flash. And this particular sector is all 119.95.
Departure,
Continental
Skywest
294, contact center 119.95.
6651 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s. Contact center on 119.95, Continental 294.
Skywest 6651, radar contact. Skywest 6651, climb and maintain 6000.
Climb and maintain 6000, Skywest 6651.
Delta 2662, contact center 119.95.
Contact center on 119.95, Delta 2662.
Our southwest flight has just about reached its altitude restriction of 6,000 feet. And when he's about just a little further here, we'll hand him over to center on the north side. Southwest 6873, contact center 134.2.
Contact center on 134.2, Southwest 6873.
Another Gorman 4. Skywest 6651 is a regional jet, a CRJ. It does not have the same kind of a climb rate as a 737 or a 757 does. But we really don't care about that for anything that's heading to the north.
Departure, Horizon Air 2072 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s.
Horizon Air 2072, radar contact. Horizon Air 2072, climb and maintain 6000.
Climb and maintain 6000, Horizon Air 2072.
This airplane, Horizon Air 2072, is at dash 8, which is actually a, oh, I'm blank now if it's a turbojet or a turboprop. But again, it's not a very fast climber compared to a 737 or a 757. I started to say about the CRJ here, we don't really care if they do manage to get to 6,000 because we're not worrying about an altitude for handing these guys off now. We're worrying about a lateral boundary. And if they haven't quite climbed to 6,000 by the time they get there, that's fine. The next sector controller will take care of giving them higher and not letting them climb. Initiate the handoff, and that's the acknowledgement. Skywest 6651, contact center on 134.2.
Contact center on 134.2 SkyWest 6651.
Okay, now this is kind of an interesting one. This is a what's called I think it's a JED 1 departure.
Departure, SkyWest 8425 with information Alpha at 900 climbing to 1300.
It does not actually follow the path that this little red line depicts here. And you can see the JED 1 is not a very common departure, so I don't have the waypoints for it depicted on here. It doesn't particularly matter. We're just going to go ahead and get it climbed up and then give it the handoff at our usual altitude. SkyWest 8425, radar contact. SkyWest 8425, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 SkyWest 8425.
The JED 1 departure is actually very amusing in some ways. It's worth going and looking this up on AirNav. Look up the LAX JED 1 departure and examine the waypoints as it makes its way south. Look at the names of them. And if you are not real young and remember the Beverly Hillbillies show at all, you will be very amused.
Departure, Southwest 1415 with information Alpha at 800 climbing to 5000.
That's a Sebb departure. Horizon Air 2072, contact center on 134.2.
Contact center on 134.2 Horizon Air 2072.
Southwest 1415, radar contact. Southwest 1415, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 Southwest 1415.
And following our strategy now, we'll give this guy a U-turn very shortly here. This guy is flying exactly the same departure. This is a Boeing 737. We'll see what
Departure,
this guy is.
Southwest 194 with information Alpha at 900 climbing to 5000.
Also a Boeing 737. Southwest 1415, proceed direct Seal Beach, resume the departure.
Proceed direct Seal Beach, resume the departure Southwest 1415.
Southwest 194, radar contact. These two airplanes will have similar climb rates, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, SkyWest 8425 is now at 6,400 feet. This one is climbing very slowly. It'd be interesting to see whether we get the altitude handoff first or whether we're going to get to the lateral boundary before we hand this guy off. Just for a surety of lateral separation, we will let our Southwest 194 here get a little further out than the normal 5-mile place where we conduct the U-turn, just to ensure separation.
Departure, SkyWest 6290 with information Alpha at 900 climbing to 5000.
SkyWest 6290, radar contact. SkyWest 6290, climb and maintain 6,000.
Climb and maintain 6,000 SkyWest 6290.
Southwest 194, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 Southwest 194.
Southwest 194, proceed direct Seal Beach, resume the departure.
Proceed direct Seal Beach, resume the departure Southwest 194.
A SkyWest 8425 is almost at 10,000 feet, so we will be able to hand them off shortly here. You can see we've got both of these planes routed just north of the Palos Verdes Peninsula, which we're trying to avoid. And there's our SkyWest. Altitude has been reached. SkyWest 8425, contact center on 119.95.
Contact center on 119.95 SkyWest 8425.
Another Sebb 7 departure. So Southwest 1415 is now above our handoff altitude, or the minimum handoff altitude, so we can give them over to center. We are still within the 127.1 frequency range.
Departure, Air Canada 790 with information Alpha at 800s climbing to 5000s.
Air Canada 790, radar contact. Air Canada 790, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 Air Canada 790.
Southwest 1415, contact center on 127.1.
Contact center on 127.1 Southwest 1415.
As it starts to get a little more crowded, we have to be pretty disciplined about keeping our scan up. And by a scan, I mean you want to look at all the areas of your map in kind of a regular fashion, a practiced fashion, so that you don't overlook a target that needs attention. So don't get focused on the south end of the map and miss the fact that we have to very shortly here hand off SkyWest 6290. SkyWest 6290, contact center on 134.2.
Contact center on 134.2 SkyWest 6290.
Air Canada 790, proceed direct Seal Beach, resume the departure.
Proceed direct Seal Beach, resume the departure Air Canada 790. Departure, SkyWest 4820 with information Alpha at 800s climbing to 5000s.
SkyWest 4820, radar contact. Southwest 194, contact center on 127.1.
Contact center on 127.1 Southwest 194.
SkyWest 4820, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 SkyWest 4820.
Sebb 7 is very popular today. SkyWest 4820, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 SkyWest 4820.
Actually, I already gave him that instruction. I could have looked down at my
Departure,
command history and seen
American
that.
1408 with information Alpha at 800s climbing to 5000s.
American 1408, radar contact. SkyWest 4820, proceed direct Seal Beach, resume the departure.
Proceed direct Seal Beach, resume the departure SkyWest 4820.
I actually waited a little too long to give this guy his turn. It's going to mess up my spacing a little bit here with the next one who's right behind him. I like to get these guys turned towards Seal Beach almost as soon as they cross the 5-mile ring here. And when I gave this guy his altitude, his double altitude assignment, the second radio call, I meant to give him his U-turn, and I just got discombobulated a little there. It's not going to generate any kind of a separation problem or anything like that, but it will mean I also have to extend American 1408 out just a little bit before I give him his turn towards Seal Beach. And now we've got somebody flying, looks like an Ocean 4 departure. American 1408, climb and maintain 13,000.
Departure, SkyWest 4800 with information Alpha at 800s climbing to 3000s. Climb and maintain 13,000 American 1408.
American 1408, proceed direct Seal Beach, resume the departure.
Proceed direct Seal Beach, resume the departure American 1408.
Air Canada 790, contact center on 127.1.
Contact center on 127.1 Air Canada 790.
SkyWest 4800, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 SkyWest 4800.
SkyWest 4800 is a CRJ, and our guy here is a 767 who will have a much better climb rate than the CRJ will. So even though it looks like these guys are converging a little bit, they will begin diverging very rapidly now, and they're still nearly 4,000 feet apart. SkyWest 4820, contact center on 127.1.
Contact center on 127.1 SkyWest 4820.
SkyWest 4800, proceed direct Pevy, resume the departure.
Proceed direct Pevy, resume the departure SkyWest 4800.
Gorman 4.
Departure, SkyWest 9055 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s.
SkyWest 9055, radar contact. You can see the little tail here indicating he has begun his turn, so we don't have to turn him to Gorman. SkyWest 9055, climb and maintain 6,000.
Climb and maintain 6,000 SkyWest 9055.
American 1408, contact center on 127.1.
Contact center on 127.1 American 1408.
If you recall the Sebb 7 departure path, it's supposed to fly all the way out to Seal Beach before it turns north and heads up towards Daggett VOR. And what you see here is these planes are actually turning north sooner than you would expect, but that actually makes a lot of sense from a couple perspectives. First, there's no reason to take them all the way out to Seal Beach if they want to go north, so the center controller has given them a shortcut up to Daggett. But the sooner they get them turned closer to the airport, the better, because recall our arrivals are coming in here and will be down at around 7,000 to 9,000 feet in this vicinity. They're still pretty high out here, even as far as Fueler and Tarak. They could be at 12,000. So the closer that these planes are kept to the airport in a way, the more separation vertically we're going to have with arriving traffic. SkyWest 90055, contact center on 134.2.
Contact center on 134.2 SkyWest 90055.
SkyWest 4800, contact center on 119.95.
Contact center on 119.95 SkyWest 4800. Departure. American 1974 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s.
American 1974, radar contact. American 1974, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 American 1974.
A small thing to remember, but that does should be in the back of your mind, is the all airplanes below 10,000 feet have to maintain an airspeed of 250 knots or slower until they get above 10,000 feet. So the maximum airspeed you'll see in a climb is 250 knots. You may see lower than that for some regional jets or from some turboprops, but you will never see higher than 250 knots until they reach 10,000.
Departure. United 558 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s.
United 558, radar contact. Notice United 558 at departure is only 160 knots. They will pretty rapidly accelerate to up to 250 knots, and then they have to hold there. They can't fly faster than that, below 10,000 feet as we've talked about. Once they've gotten above 10,000 feet, you'll see them accelerate to faster speeds than that. This guy who we handed over to center, for example, is at 300 knots already. United 558, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 United 558.
United 558 flying the Sebb 7 will give him the turn at about the right place this time. We won't wait too long. United 558, proceed direct Seal Beach, resume the departure.
Proceed direct Seal Beach, resume the departure United 558. Departure. American 34 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s.
American 34, radar contact. Now this is a potential area of conflict that we want to make sure we avoid. This plane is heading direct to Schaeff intersection flying the Holtz 9, and we'll be going under American 558 here, who's making the U-turn to go over to Seal Beach. We're at 5,200 feet here. This guy is restricted to 5,000. That's his initial altitude he was given on departure. We'll go ahead and hold him at 5,000 and not let him climb higher until we've got until 558 has crossed and has climbed to higher altitudes. Already we're pretty safe because United 558 is going to be at 6,000 in a minute, and this guy is at 5, so, or will be at 5. He's still only at 3,000 feet, so we have plenty of separation right now. That guy's going to Gorman 4.
Departure, Southwest 2122 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5,000s.
Southwest 2122, radar contact. Pretty dependable that the airplanes are high enough by the time they get to Pevy to hand them off. American 1974, contact center on 119.95.
Contact center on 119.95, American 1974.
American 34, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000, American 34.
Southwest 2122, climb and maintain 6,000.
Climb and maintain 6,000, Southwest 2122.
One thing you may have already noticed is that unlike with arrival management where you are constantly zooming the scope out and then back in again to maintain your situational awareness of incoming arrivals, that's really pretty much unnecessary with departures. Everything that happens is within the scope of the screen, even at this zoom level, and you can pretty much just stay here. I don't find myself zooming in and out very much during when I'm managing departures. Another Gorman 4. Now because we delayed...
Departure, Southwest 2733 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5,000s.
Southwest 2733, radar contact. Because we delayed American 34's climb, they may not make it to 10,000 feet by Pevy, but that doesn't matter to us. We'll just wait till they do finally get to 10,000 before we hand them off. It still likely will be well before Holtz intersection. And even if it gets past Holtz, we don't care. As long as they get to, as long as we try to get them to the altitude they're supposed to be at before they get to the sector boundary, or hand them off within the 3-mile or 5-mile limit of the sector boundary, we're fine. United 558, contact center on 127.1.
Contact center on 127.1, United 558.
Actually, American 34 may make it to 10,000 almost by the time he gets to Pevy, maybe just past it. AR scan now. Almost ready to hand off. In fact, we can hand off Southwest 22122. Southwest 2122, contact center on 134.2.
Contact center on 134.2, Southwest 2122.
And look at that.
Departure, JetBlue 478 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5,000s.
JetBlue 478, radar contact. American 34, contact center on 119.95.
Contact center on 119.95, American 34.
JetBlue 478, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000, JetBlue 478.
Another little small tip that I have, which may help you, and it helps me a little bit. Once I have gotten an airplane turned onto the heading that I want it to fly, I put the leader kind of in that direction so that if I just a quick glance at the plane, if the blue trail doesn't tell me which direction it's going, then the leader gives me a hint about that. And in particular, once I've handed them off to center, I will do that, is just kind of make the leader line up with the tail.
Departure, United 2-2 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s.
United 2-2, radar contact. United 2-2, climb and maintain 1000.
Climb and maintain 1000 United 2-2.
I hold this guy at 11,000 rather than 13,000 just for a moment because I want to observe the climb rates here. This is an Airbus 320, this is a 757. They both climb pretty well. Southwest 2733, contact center on 134.2.
Contact center on 134.2 Southwest 2733.
We've only got 2,000 feet of separation there, and laterally we've got, so here's a trick you should also know about, is alt clicking will give us the distance, will actually show where the airplanes will cross if they're going to.
Departure, Piedmont 710 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s.
Piedmont 710, radar contact.
Say again.
Piedmont 710, radar contact. JetBlue 478, proceed direct Holtz, resume the departure.
Proceed direct Holtz, resume the departure JetBlue 478.
This is another good use for shortcuts, is it will increase the lateral separation between the JetBlue flight and the United flight. He's going to fly the standard Chafe to Pevy. This guy's going to bypass Pevy and go direct to Holtz, which will increase their lateral separation. United 22, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 United 22.
Yeah, you can see the 757 is climbing faster than the United flight is, so the additional lateral separation is a good thing here.
Departure, Southwest 727 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s.
Southwest 727, radar contact. Piedmont 710, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 Piedmont 710.
JetBlue 478, contact center on 119.95.
Contact center on 119.95 JetBlue 478.
United 22, contact center on 119.95.
Contact center on 119.95 United 22.
Southwest 727, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,800 Southwest 727.
Okay, now that's a common problem that you may have run into a bunch of times. I'm going to put my command panel up here and let you see what happened if you aren't already familiar with this problem. Watch what happens when I give Southwest 727 their altitude again. Southwest 727, climb and maintain 13,000.
Departure, Alaska 451 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s. Climb and maintain 13,000 Southwest 727.
So I don't know if you saw it, but what happened was I gave them 13,000 and it flickered between a couple of different altitudes. We saw 13,900 for a moment, for example. You have to hold your push to talk key down until the altitude stabilizes at the altitude that you've claimed. Otherwise, these weird hundreds of feet above or below the altitude, usually above the altitude you've given them, will show up. So that's just a thing. I'm going to leave the command panel here for just a bit so we can watch this happen once or twice more. Alaska 451, climb and maintain 6,000.
Climb and maintain 6000 Alaska 451.
So if you saw the 6,000 was actually 6,600 for just a second, and I kept holding the push-to-talk key until it settled on 6,000. That is a very annoying element of the game, and I don't know that there's a fix for it, but you just need to be aware of it. And when you forget and let the key up too quickly, you'll just have to give the altitude assignment again. Piedmont 710, contact center on 119.95.
Contact center on 119.95 Piedmont 710, departure, SkyWest 6517 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s.
SkyWest 6517, radar contact. SkyWest 6517, climb and maintain 6,000.
Climb and maintain 6000 SkyWest 6517.
This B738 indication is that this is a Boeing 737-800, which are the newest of the 737 fleet or of type aircraft. They climb very fast. This, on the other hand, is a CRJ-7, a regional jet, not a fast climber. Alaska 451, contact center on 134.2.
Contact center on 134.2 Alaska 451. Departure, Southwest 1908 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s.
Note that although we've initiated the handover here, we don't have to immediately do it. That just is the initiate. We can make radar contact on this guy first and then hand over the airplane. Southwest 1908, radar contact. Southwest 727, contact center on 119.95.
Contact center on 119.95 Southwest 727.
Southwest 19908, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 Southwest 1908.
Southwest 1908, proceed direct Seal Beach, resume the departure.
Proceed direct Seal Beach, resume the departure Southwest 1908. Departure, SkyWest 6835 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s.
SkyWest 6835, radar contact. SkyWest 6835, climb and maintain 6,000.
Climb and maintain 6000 SkyWest 6835. Departure, United 347 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s.
SkyWest 6517, contact center on 134.2.
Contact center on 134.2 SkyWest 6517.
United 347, radar contact. Southwest 1908, contact center on 127.1.
Contact center on 127.1 Southwest 1908.
United 347, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 United 347.
United 347, proceed direct Pevy, resume the departure.
Proceed direct Pevy, resume the departure United 347. Departure, Continental 1703 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s.
Continental 1703, radar contact. SkyWest 6835, contact center on 134.2.
Contact center on 134.2 SkyWest 6835.
Continental 1703, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 Continental 1703.
So in a lot of ways now, this is really enough gameplay, I think, to illustrate the principles that we've been talking about. As you've seen, there hasn't really been strain or really anything very interesting that happens on when you're managing departures and just kind of following your own plan here that we've discussed. We've seen the same departures pretty much over and over. There are a few Perch 9 departures that are coming up pretty shortly. So we may hang out and just wait for one
Departure,
of those to occur.
United 106 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s.
United 106, radar contact. Continental 1703, proceed direct Pevy, resume the departure.
Proceed direct Pevy, resume the departure Continental 1703.
Perch 9 is really not very exciting, really. It's a straight-out departure for flights that are heading overseas to Honolulu or to Asia or Australia. They come straight out and head for Perch intersection out here. There is probably the easiest of all the departures are the Perch 9s, since all you have to do is give them a climb instruction and then hand them off whenever they reach the lateral perimeter or the altitude. And interesting, most of the time they will not reach the altitude 10,000 before they get to the perimeter, or it's a very close thing. Depends on the aircraft, of course, but usually these are very heavy aircraft, 747s and so forth, that climb not somewhat sluggishly. United 347, contact center on 119.95.
Contact center on 119.95 United 347, departure, Southwest 3270 with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s.
Southwest 3270, radar contact.
Say again.
Southwest 3270, radar contact. United 106, proceed direct Seal Beach, resume the departure.
Proceed direct Seal Beach, resume the departure United 106.
United 106, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,800 United 106.
United 106, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 United 106.
I got to talking and I've actually created a situation for myself here, but I'll come back to that in just a second. Continental 1703, contact center on 119.95.
Contact center on 119.95 Continental 1703.
So we've got the same situation we had earlier. Is I waited too long to give United 106 his climb while I was talking about stuff, and Southwest 3270 is going to cut right across and underneath of United 106. If I had not climbed this guy to let him start his climb, we would have had a conflict here because they both would have been at 5,000 feet in roughly the same vicinity.
Departure, United 261 with information Alpha at 900 climbing to 5,000.
United 261, radar contact.
Say again.
United 261, radar contact. Sometimes you just have to slow down a little bit on your on the speech recognition or it won't hear you. Southwest 3270, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,300 Southwest 3270.
Southwest 3270, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 Southwest 3270.
What did I say about slowing myself down? So no problem now on these aircraft. This guy's up actually a handoff altitude and this guy's separating. Ah, there's a perch 9. United 106, contact center on 127.1.
Contact center on 127.1 United 106.
Notice that this guy accelerated pretty fast above
Departure,
250 knots.
United 81 with information Alpha at 900 climbing to 5,000.
Once he got above 10,000 feet, he automatically speeds up to whatever his best calculated airspeed is for best fuel. United 81, radar contact. United 261, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 United 261.
United 81, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 United 81.
United 81 is a 777.
Departure, United 6352 with information Alpha at 800 climbing to 5,000.
United 6352, radar contact. You can see how sluggishly this airplane is climbing. He's at 250 knots, but he's only at 4,000 feet. Southwest 3270, contact center on 119.95.
Contact center on 119.95 Southwest 3270.
This guy is gonna, if they were on the same departure, I would actually worry about this a little bit. United 6352, proceed direct Pevy, resume the departure.
Proceed direct Pevy, resume the departure United 6352.
I really don't want him to overtake that United 81 flight. Not even a little bit more, so just get him turned away.
Departure, Southwest 0454 with information Alpha at 800 climbing to 5,000.
Southwest 0454, radar contact. United 6352, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,900 United 6352.
United 6352, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 United 6352.
United 261, contact center on 119.95.
Contact center on 119.95 United 261.
Southwest 0454, proceed direct Seal Beach, resume the departure.
Proceed direct Seal Beach, resume the departure Southwest 0454. Departure. American 244 with information Alpha at 800s climbing to 5000s.
American 244, radar contact. Southwest 0454, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,500 Southwest 0454.
Southwest 0454, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 Southwest 0454.
United 81, contact center on 135.3.
Contact center on 135.3 United 81.
United 6352, contact center on 119.95.
Departure. SkyWest 649er with information Alpha at 900s climbing to 5000s. Contact center on 119.95 United 6352.
SkyWest 6499er, radar contact. SkyWest 6499er, climb and maintain 6,000.
Climb and maintain 6000 SkyWest 649er.
American 244, climb and maintain 13,000.
Climb and maintain 13,000 American 244.
And that's probably a good place to end the gameplay at this point, as there's nothing more exciting or interesting coming up for a while now. Go ahead and pause the game just so I can wrap up with a couple final thoughts. As long as you keep your attention on the game and on the situation that's going on, managing the managing the departures out of LAX is really a pretty rote process. And indeed, I'll even say after a while it gets kind of boring, because you're really just doing the same thing over and over again, and there really are very rarely even any situations that you need your attention. But it's good practice, and certainly if you have any intention of trying to handle both the approach and departure positions at the same time, managing the departures needs to become absolutely routine, or you will have no hope of being able to manage departures and arrivals from the same position. Now, I need to say, in real life, there would never be the same guy managing both arrivals and departures into an airport like LAX or Las Vegas or any of these here, except possibly in the earliest wee hours of the morning when there were, 2 or 3 traffic movements every hour between both arrivals and departures. At that point, somebody might be manning both positions. But during any kind of density at all, there would be certainly only one controller. There would be more than one controller managing arrivals and a different one managing departures. And in fact, usually it's split up even more finely than that. There might be one managing departures to the north and a different guy managing departures to the south. So still, it's fun to give it a try and see how long you can last before you crash and burn. Even though I've developed a fair amount of proficiency at doing this, I have not had a tremendous amount of success with high-density arrivals and departures of being able to manage both of them for very long. You just become too fatigued. Recapping the basic strategy here one last time, is pay attention to the route that they're going to follow by clicking on the aircraft so we can see where they're going. Do that as soon as they appear as a tower, even before they're handed off to you, so you can anticipate which direction you're going to turn them if you need to, and what altitude you're going to give them in particular, because everything to the south is getting 13,000 feet, and everything going this way is getting 6,000 feet. Then let them fly the departure as depicted, unless it's appropriate and useful to give them a shortcut. And there are no shortcuts for northbound traffic, but you can give shortcuts for the planes that are flying the Sebb 7. You can give them the U-turn as soon as they get outside about 5 DME, and they nicely come along here and go to Seal Beach VOR right north of the peninsula that we're avoiding. All the other traffic routes around this way down through Pevy, Holtz intersection, and then out here to the east, but we don't really particularly care where they're going because we'll have handed them off in every case, as you saw here, way before they got to Holtz intersection, and certainly before they got to Ocean or anything that was further out here to the east. It's almost a dead bet that you can get them to 10,000 feet by the time they get to Pevy intersection. The Perch 9 departure just goes straight out. You could see how slowly those airplanes climbed, so don't let that distract you in any way, but do pay a little bit of attention to them as when they have airplanes right behind them that are heading out on the Holtz or the Ocean departures to make sure you don't have any conflicts. A thing to remember, a command to remember, is that you can tell an airplane to expedite its climb, and it will climb substantially faster, but that will be at the cost of lower airspeed. So a plane that normally climbs at 250 knots, if you tell it to expedite its climb, it will climb faster, but it might slow to only 160 knots, because that's the trade-off in all aircraft, is you can climb at a higher rate, but you have to be at a lower airspeed then. So given all this, go give it a try yourself. If you haven't done this a lot before, try running it at a slightly lower density time, maybe either reduce the departure density or try it at a slower time of day, like 2 in the afternoon or 10 at night or something like that, and you'll get much fewer departures and give you more time to learn the situation. But you'll find yourself being able to advance to very dense traffic situations much more quickly than you were able to do with arrivals with departures. So have fun with the game, and best of luck. Thanks for watching.